Twitchy Dolphin Media presents Let's Get To. It's baseball from sea to shining sea by the team that brings you home. And now, your host, James Christopher.
And welcome to Let's Get To. I'm your host, James Christopher, and I am recording this during Jaws week for my Film 1 classes. That's why I'm wearing this amazing Jaws shirt.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
We have got a full, fun show for you today as we head out to Hartford, Connecticut, home of your Hartford Yard Goats. We have just 3 episodes of Let's Get To left, and they are going to be stuffed with a lot of fun and a lot of heart and a lot of energy. In this episode, we're going to have the Yard Goats on, but still to come this season, we're going to have the Peoria Chiefs, the Vermont Lake Monsters, and the Fredericksburg Nationals, as well as the Dottie Award winners, the announcement of next year's team visits, and more importantly, in the finale, the name of the new show. But first things first, it's Yard Goat time, so stay with us.
On the St. Louis team, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
That's what I want to find out. I want you to tell me the names of the fellas on the St. Louis team.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
You know the fellas' names?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean, the fellas'
Who's on first? The Let's
The fella
Get
playing
To
first
team
base
of the
for St.
week.
Louis.
Now, if you're not familiar with minor league baseball, you might hear the name the Hartford Yard Goats, and your first reaction is, I'm sorry, what now? The who? But if you are familiar with minor league baseball, then you know that the Hartford Yard Goats are plain and simply one of the most iconic brands in the business, with a name you can't forget and a ballpark experience that you wouldn't want to. The Yard Goats really are the GOAT. And they're not just a cool name, although they are a very cool name, but they're also miracle workers. So we had 2 games to hit up, and the first one admittedly was a soggy affair. Now, one of the things that epitomizes minor league baseball the most is the tarp pull. And if you've never seen a tarp pull, you're missing out. I actually want to help with one day. But it's an all-hands-on-deck situation as they work to get the ground all dried out to play some baseball. And it is an impressive display of teamwork, efficiency, and on my part, some cinematography. Yeah, I bragged on myself, but we shot a lot of footage. Now, once dried out, Duncan Park is a perfect venue for baseball. It sits in the heart of Hartford, surrounded by the city and cast under a perfect blue sky. It's like a little baseball heaven in Connecticut. The perfection of the ballpark is matched only by the perfection of the Yard Goats brand. It's fun, it's dynamic, and it is certainly memorable. There are 120 teams in affiliated minor league baseball, and one of the teams you'll remember are the Yard Goats. That's the beauty of the name. Remembering the Yard Goats wasn't on the agenda for tonight, though. We were there for a very special night in Hartford, celebrating the Hartford Whalers. I first heard about them in the movie Mallrats.
Breakfast come and go, Renee. Now Hartford, the Whale, hey, they only beat Vancouver once, maybe twice in a lifetime.
So we got to talk to the voice of the Yard Goats, Jeff Dooley, about the Yard Goats, the Whalers, in the annual celebration of the Hartford Whalers NHL team. They have an alumni weekend, and we wanted to find out why the fans connected to this weekend so much.
I know it was a lot of tension, there was a lot of upset fans, and there still are, and that was 25 years ago when they left, and people still have the passion. I know their merchandise is still one of the top merchandise selling in the NHL, which is really, really cool. And obviously we adopted their colors, the green and the blue, in our Yard Goat uniform. So we thought it was the thing to do, bring those folks back, and I love the whole weekend. This year it's special. We've got Kevin Dineen, arguably one of the best Whalers to ever suit up in Hartford. Chuck Caton is really the voice of the Whalers and kind of the man behind the scenes that has put this together. He has since the inaugural season that we did it. So, but it's fun, and nothing is make us more proud than seeing the smiles on the faces of the fans.
We love theme nights, surprise, surprise, and lots of theme nights are designed for a team to bring people out. But why are theme nights the cornerstone of the Yard Goats experience?
I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve, to be honest, with a lot of the teams, and I know it's kind of a big movement now, but we've always felt Yard Goats baseball is for everybody. We want to make sure everybody comes to the ballpark and feels safe and has a good time. And the other stuff doesn't matter. I mean, we're about everybody. We want everyone to come in, and nothing else matters. But the 3 hours that you spend with us at the game, rooting on the Yard Goats, or having a good time, getting a T-shirt, watching a fireworks show, going to visit the goats, the live goats we have in center field. So we wanted to make sure that everyone feels welcome at the ballpark, and everyone should. And we hope that we've kind of sent that message to everybody out there.
Now, while the Whalers might be gone, the Yard Goats are here to stay, iconic brand included. We got with Ryan Sandler, the director of merchandising of the Yard Goats, to find out what makes the Yard Goats so iconic.
I think we're in a very unique position in our location because obviously our affiliate is with the Colorado Rockies and they're a great organization. However, being though that we are so far away from them, we've definitely had to make a name for ourselves. And I think that's what is unique. And I think that also what drew me to the organization to begin with, because back in my time at school, West Virginia also doesn't have a professional sports team. And so the school there was the team for everyone there. And so there's definitely camaraderie within that, both at school and I also see it here as well. And just great pride for the city of Hartford and Connecticut.
I myself am always fascinated about what criteria a team uses to decide what merch they put their mark on. Meaning, really good teams, the t-shirts don't shrink. Maybe meh teams, you get one wearing out of them. That's it. And that's frustrating, particularly with a guy who's worried about his weight.
It's a big collaborative effort. The Skyline jersey was designed by our production person, kind of to mock, for lack of a better term, the Rockies or the city line collection that the MLB did. But it also helps just to create, again, that sense of pride within Hartford. I have a lot of people coming in, whether they're from the area or just visiting, and they like wearing stuff that says Hartford. So that's a big part of what we try to incorporate our merchandise in. I don't know if you saw, we also have a t-shirt that has the outline of Connecticut. We have that in a men's version, and then in our women's version of that, it's again the state outline, but there's a little heart in the middle of the state where Hartford is located. And we have a couple things like that too. We had a Chivos version of that, even a snapback that says Hartford on it. We also just got in snapbacks. I don't know if you saw them when they were there, but it's similar to the Skyline jersey of it, the Hartford Skyline. And people just really like to identify with the city itself and the state. And so I think that's a big part of just continuing to try to go back to that ideal of state pride and for the city too.
When you're doing a theme night, I have to imagine it's a lot of fun to actually get to mess with the main brand just a little bit to fit into the night.
We have the hockey night where we actually have the goat holding a hockey stick instead of a bat. We have a fitted hat of that as well, which is one of our top sellers.
And for more on this amazing brand, let's go to the amazing Paul Caputo from Baseball by Design.
The Hartford Yard Goats might be the poster child for minor league baseball team name that looks like it was picked out of a dictionary at random, but actually has an awesome, amazing backstory. Yard Goat is a nickname for a particular kind of railroad locomotive. In the rail industry, yard goats, also called switchers, hardly ever leave the rail yard. Instead, they toil in obscurity in the rail yard, spending their days moving the other trains around, getting them ready to go for their long-distance trips. The reason the Yard Goats have a nickname that's associated with the railroad industry is that the history of Hartford, Connecticut is tied to an important rail system, the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad, which operated from 1872 to 1968. It's also the foundation for one of my favorite aspects of this logo. The Hartford Yard Goats script that Brandeis came up with derives from a distinctive typeface that was used in that railroad's signage. The colors are near and dear to sports fans in Hartford, Connecticut. They derive directly from the erstwhile Hartford Whalers. The team was founded in 2016 after the New Britain Rock Cats relocated to Hartford, though the team didn't actually play a home game until 2017. It's a relatively recent story for a team that feels like it has been a stalwart in minor league baseball branding for a long time.
I love the marks all over the park, and I'm not sure anyone has more fun with their own identity than Hartford does. No goats, no glory. Be the goat. And then you've got Yard Goats on the wall and a baseball card lineup, which I've never seen before, and every team needs to be doing starting meow. I don't know how to say a now with a goat sound. Just don't know how to do it. You also have, when you're walking around the park, you hear the sound, a bleating sound. Real goats, y'all. They've got adult goats, baby goats, goats. You hear them bleating all over the ballpark, particularly from behind center field, and I'm not going to lie, I was pretty smitten, and I could have spent the whole game back there. You've got baby whales racing on the outfield, but you also have a team that takes a real focus on the community, in this case, spotlighting Black-owned businesses. You have a wide variety of food and beer, including a eatery called The Screaming Goat. You also have one of the most terrifying theme jerseys I've ever seen, and I want one. And yeah, I hung out on that sweet, sweet Dunkin' Donuts swing. I'm a Shipley guy, but I like me some Dunkin'. I always get a jelly. And you got people doing the YMCA. And the game crew, they're called the Goat Herders. We had Grumpy Andy all over the place. He likes to pretend to be grumpy, but he loves being at a ballpark. I was looking forward to having fun at a Yard Goats game, and fun is what I had in spades. I had a goat load of it. And speaking of fun, we thought we'd have a little bit of fun with Ryan and Jeff when it comes to our rapid fire questions. And of course, the first one, the Godfather question.
1.
I hate to admit it, I haven't seen it.
It's not your fault. It's mine for being an old man and forgetting that everyone else's. Those movies. I need to pick new movies. Okay, I'll do that.
One of my favorite movies that's an older movie is Airplane.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Okay. Look, I give people a hard time who haven't seen The Godfather, but Airplane is a very worthwhile answer. So I had to ask Ryan and Jeff, you work at ballparks, what is your go-to ballpark food?
I think a good pretzel.
I try to eat the media food because it's probably a little bit more healthy than getting the nuggets or whatever. But honestly, a cheeseburger. I'm a cheeseburger guy. So if it's something that might be healthy that I don't like or maybe don't want that night, I'll go grab a cheeseburger at a concession stand.
So as we're getting ready to leave, we asked Jeff Dooley that most important of question. When you have people coming from out of town to experience the Yard Goats and all the effort that the Yard Goats put into that game day experience in Hartford, what was he hoping the end result for us would be?
To look back and say, that was a fun 3 hours. Whether they win, whether they lose, whether the weather isn't great, you want to go in the ballpark and, hopefully meet some people, see the vibe of the stadium. It's a 360 ballpark. I mean, I think with some of the sight lines here, you get the opportunity that you don't in other minor league parks. So I hope you guys have a great time, and I hopefully when you board that plane back to Texas, you should say, wow, that was a pretty cool experience. I want to come back for more.
Now, after 2 games in and all of the fun and the craziness the Yard Goats have to offer, hanging out with Scotty from Before the Pitch, Andy and I getting to have some great pizza in between 2 great ballparks. I'm using the word great a lot because it was great. We walked away excited, satisfied, and at least I was bummed that it was over. And it was a promise to ourselves to get back when the new show launches. We're going to tease it. We're going to be brave because no goats, no glory, right? Because when it comes to minor league baseball, the Yard Goats really are the GOAT.
A wise man once said, when shooting a minor league baseball game, it's best to keep one's head on a swivel.
Holler and a Swaller, a chug of ballpark brew, presented by The Hitter Sports.
And welcome back here to Holler and a Swaller. We almost literally died. I'm now to do Holler and a Swaller with something in my pants.
Well, that seems like a personal choice, and I don't know that we actually died. We came very close to a home run ball, which is what you want in a ballpark.
Yes, you go with your back turned.
You want to go to a minor league ballpark. You want to see a baseball game. You want to get a chance to catch your home run ball. We came pretty close.
Yes. The funny part was, not 3 seconds ago, he's like, boy, it'd really be funny if we got hit with a home run ball.
We almost did.
Was it almost funny?
It was almost.
It was almost funny. So this is your 4th time out here to Yard Goats. Dunkin' Park, excuse me. My first time. 4 times, I mean, is it still cool for you, or is it kind of now becoming very comfortable for you?
Well, it's comfortable, but I think one of the great things about this park and the team that runs it is the level of care, level of dedication they have towards making everything a super family-friendly, super fan-friendly event. This is Whalers weekend, where they have Whalers alumni come in from the Hartford, from the WHL and NHL Whalers, and everybody here is very pumped.
We have
very
not
amped.
seen Jason Smith yet.
We have not. Possibly,
if you know, you know.
Yeah, possibly later. But every time I come, everybody goes out of their way to be friendly, to be fun, to make sure everybody's enjoying the game experience. It's a great time. It's right outside of downtown Hartford. You can see the skyline over the center field wall. It's just a lot of fun.
What I think you hit on the how polite and welcoming everybody's been. I felt the sense from ushers all the way up to meeting the merchandise manager Ryan, who will probably be on the show a little later on. But they actually all care as if this is the team that they own, that they're running, and the customer experience is very important to them.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, and I think that's one of the things that can set a minor league park apart from its peers, and certainly from the major league experience, because while I love going to an Astros game or going to a Yankees game or going to an Angels game, you don't exactly get the feeling that anybody cares if you're there or not.
No.
This group that runs this park 100% cares that you show up, and not only that you show up and you have a good time, but that you'll want to come back again. And we're doing that. We're coming back tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming back tomorrow. This one's always been high on our bucket list. But you nailed something that we have talked about since we started doing this show, and it's weird because you can pull into a park that's pretty derpy but have a great time because the staff is almost overcoming the derpiness.
Yes.
You can then go to a park that looks beautiful and the staff just kind of ignores you. They actually are doing all of it right.
Yeah, I think it's. We talked about talent. We talked about learning how to do things the right way. This is a team that runs this park that has both talent, and they've trained the right way, and they really, really do care about you coming here, having a great time, and wanting to come back.
Yeah, again, perfect experience for us. I kind of think a lot of how it's laid out is pretty neat. And one of the things that I thought was cool is the press box, not the press box itself, but the media center. It's in a glass room, so you actually get a behind-the-scenes peek at a part of the baseball experience that you don't really ever get to see.
Yeah, I think another part of the layout of the park that's really neat is that if you have more land available to you, you're going to build out and have berms.
Yeah.
This is very much an urban park, and what I mean by that is the park is not built out, it's built up. And so you've got a second level that goes all through center and right field. It runs all the way around the whole park back to the third base side. The only place you don't have a second deck is where we happen to be sitting right now, which is probably why we almost got killed by a home run ball.
Almost got killed. Have we mentioned we almost got killed by a home run ball? I think a lot of what they do right. You and I spent a lot of money on merch. We will not, on conditions of anonymity, admit to how much we spent, but they really do brand this team really, really well.
Yeah, and it runs through every aspect of the park, from the toilet stalls, and I'm serious about that. To the seats that we're sitting in right now that I'm sure we'll be showing a picture of. Every square inch of this park is covered in Hartford gear. They've got sayings, they've got mottos that I think all the fans know. The one I'm looking at right now is "No goats, no glory."
Yeah.
But it's all over the thing, all the way up to and including, evidently, we haven't seen them yet, live goats beyond center field wall.
Oh, we haven't seen them yet, but if they're here, you'll see them in the episode, actually before this segment airs, because that's how editing sometimes works. We've been to a bunch of stuff, and before we get to the other things we've been to, because it's Whalers night, they're showing all these old clips from Whalers games. They're showing play-by-play. Like, they really are embracing this theme completely.
Yeah, I mean, up to and including one of the charities they're raising money for is for the actor who played Dr. Hook in Slapshot. And so there's a QR code they keep flashing on the big scoreboard that you can scan and donate to that actor's. And I'm sorry that I don't have his name. His last name's D'Amato. But he played Dr. Hook. If you've ever seen the movie Slapshot with Paul Newman, he was the bad guy. You could figure that out by the name. But he evidently has a medical condition that's requiring money to be raised, and so they're participating in that. amongst like 30 other things that they are raising either money or awareness for tonight. They are very heavily involved in their community, and if that's the kind of thing that gets you jazzed and gets you energized about, coming to a minor league park, they do that in spades here.
Yeah, they take the responsibility of being the biggest professional game in town. They take that responsibility to heart. Hey, speaking of movies, what's your favorite, your go-to hockey movie?
Miracle. Matter of fact, I literally just watched it about 4 days ago. Sought it out, actually, because Kurt Russell is really, really good in that movie.
Yes, it's an excellent movie. I also love Mystery Alaska, but I'm going to go with the movie Goon. Sean William Scott, Stifler, is way better than he has any business being in that movie. All right, so been a blast. This might be our last minor league game together this season.
Possibly.
We already got some plans.
You never know.
You never know. We got some fun plans next year that we'll reveal later on. But let's first tell the people that what we're drinking. This is what he's talking about with the branding. The Goat Aid.
It's a Goat Aid Shandy, bottled and canned right here in Hartford.
Holler and a Swaller, baby.
Let's Get To presents Lights, Camera, Play Ball, Inside Baseball Cinema.
So pretty much through the run of this show, I've gotten two questions. One, how come you've not done a full review of Bull Durham on this show? And two, for someone who loves minor league baseball as much as you do, why isn't Bull Durham your number one baseball movie? And so, with our show coming to an end soon, I thought let's finally definitely deal with the elephant or bull in the room. Look, I do love minor league baseball, obviously, and I love the movie Bull Durham. I even named the show after the movie taken from this iconic scene.
Okay, well, candlesticks always make a nice gift, and maybe you can find out where she's registered, maybe a place setting or maybe a silverware pattern. Okay, let's get to.
And I think that when Bull Durham is purely a baseball movie, it is among the best, if not the best, film about baseball out there. It isn't just that the dialogue is accurate, and it's not just that the characters are so fleshed out that even the smaller ones that we don't really spend a lot of time with feel real and they feel lived in. It's not just that it's one of the times early in his career when we start to get that cocky, sure of himself Kevin Costner that would come to define many of his roles in the future. Bull Durham does this, and so does Silverado, and it kind of cements that shtick for him. And it isn't just that they gave us Susan Sarandon, who is an incredibly funny, incredibly talented, and incredibly beautiful actress.
I'm committed to Nuke for the season.
And it's not just that it's the movie that gave us Tim Robbins, who would go on to be one of the finest actors of a generation. And a lot of people talk about his role in Shawshank, but for me, I think his role in Mystic River, it's just an incredible performance by an incredible actor.
Things looking any better on the Sprite, Sean?
What I like about the baseball that's depicted in Bull Durham is that it is a level where most people watching can relate to the game. Because it's about the grind, it's about trying to make it, and it's about all the heart and soul that goes into trying to have a career in baseball. And while Major League covers some of the same things in the beginning of the film, they're still major leaguers and still living a much more glamorous lifestyle. And this minor league baseball in Bull Durham is minor league baseball before the minor league revolution that the movie actually caused. Before we had brand new parks and theme nights and all the stuff that we've come to love. At this point, minor league baseball is still a pretty dirty, sweaty sport.
What the hell's going on out there? Looks like a convention. Pretty soon they're going to call the roll.
There's no bigger Robert Wolf fan than me, and I think he just kills it in Bull Durham. William O'Leary, also known as Dead Meat.
It'll be safe right here. I'm in a jet. What could go wrong?
Is also excellent in the movie. Again, it is top to bottom well acted. The cast is filled with superstars and role players all coming together to really put something beautiful on the screen. And I really love the fact that despite the humor, it's not really a happy ending. The hero of the film is Crash Davis, and his career ends up on another A-ball team, hitting another home run that very few people are actually ultimately going to care about. It's like so many things that we strive to do, the end is filled with heartbreak, and sometimes that's okay. Now, I know most of you listening or watching aren't in the independent film business, but that's how independent film is for the majority of us. A very few of us have that moment in their career where they are noticed and they get to move up to do higher profile things. I know quite a few of them, and quite a few of them aren't me. Most of us are going to end up with a film career similar to Crash Davis's baseball career. We're going to have to explain to people why it was cool, why it was worth doing, so it's a tragedy and an ending that I can relate to. But what doesn't work so well for me about Bull Durham is I don't think at its heart it's a baseball movie. When you focus on the baseball, it's the best baseball movie, but the romantic comedy subplot in so many ways actually takes over the film and becomes the A-plot. And there's just something that feels awkward about it to me. And it's not just the 8-minute love montage in which at one point they're doing it with their socks on and a puddle of milk. Look, I'm not going to brag, but I've had my share of relations, and never at one point did I end up in a puddle of milk. There's always time to move. It just curdles, and let's be honest, it's gross. So for that being sort of the crux of the movie and where the movie ends up, to me is just pretty unsatisfying. You never get the feeling that they're actually in love with each other. It doesn't really feel earned, for me at least, on the screen. It just feels like they're constantly hot for each other, and that's fine for Porky's, but Bull Durham wants to see itself as an elevated romantic comedy.
After 12 years in the minor leagues, I don't try out. Besides, I don't believe in quantum physics when it comes to matters of the heart.
Again, nothing wrong with that, of course, but if the goal of your movie is to show that someone's achieving a certain level of maturity and enlightenment, then being with the object of his desire shouldn't be the thing that's really treated as a consolation prize in the movie, and instead should have been a more definitive choice on both of their parts. Again, none of it's earned. It's hard not to imagine that if Nuke hadn't gotten called up, he and Annie Savoy would still be hooking up. And it's not hard to imagine that if Crash had gotten called up, that he would have left her behind. In so many ways, we are told that they love each other and are soulmates, but we're never really shown it. And to repeat a phrase that I've used a bunch in this episode already, it's unearned. Now, I know that a lot of you out there, again, are not screenwriters or filmmakers, and this distinction might not matter to you. But I can't help how I'm wired, and it absolutely matters to me. I think you actually get much more of what Ron Shelton was going for in the relationship between Jake Taylor and Lynn in Major League. While unlike the Annie Crash Nuke love triangle, their relationship has a history, and you're shown the real complexities of actual human emotion. In Bull Durham, we're not as much shown, but told, and that is a big crime in filmmaking. Now, the review is taken on a more negative tone because I'm actually addressing a very specific question of why it's not my number one on my list. And that's why. It's still number 3, and I think it's hard to say that Field of Dreams and Major League being above it are somehow unworthy of those spots. I also love that you care what my rankings are. But one of the best parts to come out of Bull Durham is the book by Ron Shelton that I'm going to discuss in our Knocking the Cover Off segment.
And now, Knocking the Cover Off, the Baseball Book Club.
So what do I spend my time doing when I'm driving all over America going to minor league baseball games? Generally, I'm listening to a lot of books. I know it's nerdy. And they can run the gamut. I've listened to the Heir to the Empire trilogy. I've listened to the original Godfather novel and the sequels, Tom Clancy books. And sometimes in the middle of the night, if I need something silly to laugh at, otherwise I fall asleep, I'll even listen to a romance novel. Honestly, there's nothing more unintentionally funny, and they definitely keep you awake. But this past year, I got a chance to listen to The Church of Baseball, The Making of Bull Durham, Home Runs, Bad Calls, Crazy Fights, Big Swings, and a Hit. Now, there are a lot of reasons to love this book. Obviously, the baseball is excellent. Ron Shelton, the author, actually played in the minors, and his experiences definitely feel lived in through the characters. And you don't realize how much of his experience was actually reflected in Bull Durham until you hear some of the other stories that come out of his mouth. But what worked for me so well was the behind the scenes of the filmmaking. For 12 years, I made independent films, and I did make 15 features, a bunch of shorts, a lot of fun times along the way. And some of those movies are pretty good. Some of those movies aren't. And all of them were made on what Hollywood would consider a no or micro budget level. And while they didn't have a lot of money going into them, lots of blood, sweat, tears, and, well, anything else you can imagine. And Ron dealt with some of those same issues that so many filmmakers that I know dealt with behind the scenes. He had to deal with the studio that didn't believe in the film. The idea that the studio fought against every single casting decision. The idea that the studio fought against any reshoots he might have needed. It's not much different, in fact, than the story you'll hear when you look at the behind the scenes of The Godfather or the original Star Wars. For some reason, the people running the show in Hollywood have no idea what makes a good movie. Shocking, that's why we have 10 Fast and the Furious movies. But there's something inspirational about how much of an independent film Bull Durham really was. How much they had to fight to get things done. How much they had to do to stay on budget. And one of my favorite parts of independent film is you have to outthink all the problems. You can't outspend them because you don't have any money. I thought I would like to make a movie with money one time. But you definitely get a sense that's a lot of what Ron had to go through to keep his cast and crew moving to finish the film. The idea that the studio didn't want to hire Susan Sarandon because they thought to themselves, or out loud, there's no way someone as young as Tim Robbins would be attracted to her. So the idea that they ended up having one of the long, great Hollywood romances really just shows you how disconnected those who run the industry really are from, us. But the book is full of anecdotes about Ron pulling the cast and crew along while shielding them from the interference from the studio. In so many ways, making Fast and the Furious 4 or whatever it is, it's so much easier because you have all the money and time in the world. It's often harder to make a smaller movie because the only resources you have are your own ability to be creative. The audiobook is read in such a folksy, matter-of-fact way. It's Ron himself narrating the book, and it just feels conversational. I could actually listen to it for hours. It had me wishing that he would do one about my actual favorite Ron Shelton movie, Tin Cup. Because I have to imagine he had some crazy experiences shooting a golf movie in West Texas. Because any experience you have in West Texas is often crazy. But The Church of Baseball, written by Ron Shelton about the making of Bull Durham, it's the perfect companion piece to the movie. And I highly recommend next time you revisit the film to immediately start reading or listening to the book. It's an easy listening, it's comforting, it's relaxing, and I can't recommend it enough. And let's just say it made the drive from Austin, Texas up to see the Memphis Redbirds feel a lot quicker.
Ladies and gentlemen, please adjust your scorecards. We have a special guest in the lineup.
And as we get to the end of Let's Get To, we have two very special guests. Baseball's about traveling and baseball's about fathers and sons. And so we've got Tom and Matthew Burns who have been on the road. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Doing great. Fine. Thanks for inviting us.
Very, very excited to have you. Tom, how is it spending all this time on the road with your son, getting to see some baseball?
I describe myself as just riding shotgun because Matt literally plans 99% of it. He consults with me when he has some decisions to be made, but mostly it's all him. So all I have to do is hold the camera and sit in the passenger seat, and I'm a happy guy.
Let's talk about the planning then, Matthew. We have our own criteria over here at Let's Get To, soon to be a new name of the show, which we will not pronounce right now. But you guys, how do you decide when and where you're going, particularly for this big trip with your dad?
Yeah, so this is the fourth big trip that I've done, and the third one with Dad. And I'm looking, particularly the thing I focus on the most is how can we get the most minor league ballparks in one trip.
Sure.
So we love Major League Baseball. We love collegiate summer leagues, but the real sweet spot for us is minor league baseball. And the first time I did this, I did all the major minor league ballparks in California with my son. And then in 2021, after COVID, we did the Carolinas, which is a fantastic place to see minor league baseball, 15 ballparks in North and South Carolina. And then we did the Pacific Northwest, which is where Dad lives, in 2022. And then this year, Mid-Atlantic, another great concentration of a lot of minor league ballparks. And we will kind of, mix in major leagues on Mondays, when there's off days.
Yeah, those frustrating off days.
Exactly. And I'm really looking to see as many places as we can. I love big trips. I love the idea of visiting a region and understanding the connective tissue in that region and what brings them all together, but also the unique differences in each place, and really getting a feel for it rather than just traveling to a particular space and going to it and going back to the hotel and flying back out again. This is as much a travel trip as it is a baseball trip for us.
Tom, how long have you been a baseball fan?
I turned 79 on Sunday, so I would say about 75 years.
Right. Okay. So a long time.
It's important. I think it's important to note that, and I'm sure this is true of Matt also, although we kind of follow the Padres, but that was because we lived in San Diego for many years, we in fact are fans of baseball, not any particular teams. I don't collect memorabilia of certain players or whatever. It's baseball and analyzing what's happening, what's going on. Matt was a catcher for 10 or 12 years or so. And we always talked about how he was calling the game and understanding what he could do to help control the game as catcher. So we're fans of baseball.
Matthew, do you remember it being sort of, as he was passing this passion on to you, do you remember it being sort of a subtle thing, or was there ever a moment when it's like, let's teach you baseball?
I think it was always there in the background from I didn't do T-ball because I didn't really have that when I was young, but what they called farm once you're like 8 years old. And I always remember playing baseball. I loved all the other sports, but it was always baseball.
So you guys, like you said, you hit up the Mid-Atlantic, which means we had some overlap in trips that we did. In fact, our series finale will be covering the Fredericksburg Nationals, which I saw that you did visit. What were some highlights, though? Tom, you go first. What were some of your favorite ballparks that you saw?
Well, you just mentioned the Fredericksburg Nationals, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but that's the game where, in fact, we saw 3 grand slams.
Wow.
One in the middle of the game, and then going into the 9th inning, the bottom of the 9th, Fredericksburg was behind 7-0, and they scored 7 runs in the bottom of the 9th, including another grand slam. And then in the top of the 10th, I don't remember the other team, other team's name, but they hit a 3rd grand slam.
Wow.
So that was pretty darn special.
Yeah. Some people go their whole lives without seeing one.
Yes.
What about you, Matthew? What were some highlights of maybe some of the parks you saw that you liked the best?
Well, there's some fantastic ballparks in the region, and there's so many. Each one is its own little special gem. But I loved Reading. There's so much incredible history there in the hallways, and
definitely, yeah.
People are doing in the background, and it was Italian Heritage Night, and so the people singing Volare between. There was a doubleheader between games, out on the patio. That was fantastic. Brooklyn, beautiful ballpark. I saw your episode on Brooklyn. We had a wonderful time there, and just that vantage point of Coney Island is pretty special.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm actually using the new show name to go back next year. I just confirmed it with their play-by-play, like literally as we're sitting here. So yeah, I don't disagree. It was amazing.
And I also liked, we had a great time in Jersey Shore too. I got to throw out the first pitch. That always helps. And we were on the radio for an inning. And then also, that whole outfield area where they've got the carnival games and the mini golf, to me, that's like what minor league baseball is all about. Something special and unique to the community, and just really that tight community spirit.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think it's one of the best parks where every single part of it works to the brand that they have established. It doesn't feel hodgepodge at all. Tom, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, in contrast to Jersey Shore, which was just wonderful, the previous night we'd gone to a Yankees game. Boring. Reason, we had to stand in line for 30 minutes just to go through security.
Oh, right.
we were sitting out in the left field bleachers, and you're so far away from home, and there's hubbub going on with 50,000 people, you almost couldn't hear the crack of the bat. So you were like watching this miniature movie of the ball flying to the outfield. You know, it was everything baseball shouldn't be. Corporate, you know, that's why we love minor league baseball.
I cannot disagree. It's also why I get club seats when I go to my hometown Astros, because if I'm not going to see the game, I might as well not see the game in luxury. I mean,
yeah.
You know, but Matthew, like you said, you checked out a few of these episodes. So much about the reason why we do this show is about heart, and it's about connection. So you've shared stuff with your son, you've shared it with your dad. We'll start with you, Matthew. What does that mean to you just to have, because I love baseball, because you can have, although the pitch clock's made it shorter, those moments between the action when you can have those connections. So what does it mean to you to have that time with him?
Well, it's been super, super special for us to connect in this way. We live in different cities, and we have for many years now. And so we would see each other once a year. Dad would come down for Father's Day. We'd play a little bit of golf. But to have this concentrated time together, not just in between innings and pitches and things like that, to chat about the game, which is what we love to do, but in the car, driving a couple of hours from place to place, sharing stories, Dad telling me about, stories from his childhood or other things that have happened in his past. And it's just so special to me.
And Tom, same question for you, but I'm a father, and I'm actually now a grandfather. I know I look young. Y'all can just stop. But sharing this game with my daughter and watching her share it with her son, it brings me just immense pride. So how was that for you as like a dad? Your son is successful in doing his thing. How much pride do you feel just watching that happen?
Oh, it almost comes close to matching when I would stand behind home plate, behind the fence, and watch my son catch. As good a catcher as you'll ever find. He knew the game. But I want to say that each day on this trip is kind of divided into 3 portions. Obviously, they usually ended up with a game at night. Mm-hmm. During the day, there were also visits to museums, historical places. I mean, we went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, to MoMA, went to the Statue of Liberty. Gettysburg. But for me, the best part of every day was the first 2 or 3 hours on the road, sitting side by side in the car, sharing stories and moments together. That was the best bonding ever.
Do you help drive, Tom, or you running the radio, or what are you doing?
No, Matt is the pilot for sure.
So as I go from place to place, I have podcasts as well as I've captured from our people in the baseball community, such as yourself. So as we're going to Lehigh, we're listening to Lehigh Valley, Iron Pigs podcast, for example, and just getting to know the people who are there and what it's like to be there to kind of prepare us for what we're going to see.
Matt, when I started the show, again, we're on our 5th season. I have been pleasantly surprised at how deep our community of baseball travelers really is. And I mean, talk to me a little bit about that when you run into somebody who follows you, or you run into somebody who it really makes you feel connected in a world where I think connection is really at a premium.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of adds on top of this really positive spirit of minor league baseball in general. I ran into a guy in Brooklyn in the seats who recognized me from my hat. I usually wear this specific Tilly hat when I go out to games until I buy a hat at
right.
and he had spotted me, and he had seen my videos on YouTube, and he was super excited, and I couldn't believe he spotted me. It was just incredible. So I seeing that, and then also just learning from all the other people on Twitter and elsewhere, what we should be looking out for, and how to connect with people, and what the best places to go for food are, and things like that, ballpark food, all those kinds of things that I should be targeting when I get there. It makes everything so much richer.
And Tom, as somebody who's grown up with baseball, can you, I mean, there was a time, and it's almost like sort of, if we were to track this biblically, we'll call it pre-Bull Durham and after Bull Durham. But when minor league baseball really was that sweaty, grimy sport that few people went to, how, as someone who's been with the game for so long, how does it feel to see it grow into kind of its own thing? Like it's its own thing separate from Major League Baseball. And as long as they don't mess with it.
I don't know, within the last week anyway, my wife and I watched The Battered Bastards of Baseball. And I recommend that to everybody.
Absolutely.
Because understanding today's minor league baseball kind of starts with the Battered Bastards of Portland when they established an independent team, and the rest of minor leagues were all so stiff and corporate subsidiaries of the major league teams. And here was this team of cast-offs, older guys, and they were winning. They were winning lots and lots of games, and they were doing all kinds of promotions.
Right.
Where the people in the stands would bring brooms when they were hoping to sweep the series. And the whole stadium in Portland be filled with people standing there with brooms, things like that.
Yeah.
So that was, to me, a turning point for minor league baseball. And the difference is when you go to a minor league game, there is so much going on. When I go to the game, I'm scorekeeping. And so I go and I sit with my place but Matt is out filming. I maybe see him 2 innings of the game. The rest of the time, he's all over the place. And it isn't until Mapping the Path, each episode comes out, that I see it. That's the first time I saw the miniature golf course, at
Sure.
the Jersey Shore, and other things like that. So that's the difference with the way each of us attends the game. He's always doing stuff for Mapping the Path. Plug.
Well, I guess, speaking of and Matthew, then, do you have any ideas for what your 2024 looks like? Regions, teams, guests?
Yeah, there's a lot of options I've been looking at. Certainly, like I've got big blank spots on this map behind me that I've not explored regions, and so the Southwest is certainly an option. I hear it's good, and the South is definitely another one. Could be New England. Midwest, I think we kind of have to divide that up into two parts: a West Midwest and a East Midwest, because there's just so many teams out there. And it's a lot of miles to cover. And then I want to do a mountain trip at some point too. So a lot of those former minor league teams that are in the Rocky Mountain area, obviously it's a beautiful travel trip too. So I haven't made up my mind for 2024 yet. We haven't talked it over really much. New England is another possibility. Not too many minor league teams out there now, but a lot of former minor league ballparks, and you've got Cape Cod and Fenway. So there's a lot to think about over the next couple of months for sure.
Well, lots to think about it. Tom, Matthew, thanks so much for jumping on Let's Get To.
Thank you.
You bet.
And now, on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, James Christopher.
And that is a wrap on this episode of Let's Get To. Next week, we are back with another episode. We're going to be visiting the Peoria Chiefs, reconnecting with a really good friend of mine, and our visit to the Vermont Lake Monsters. Because when it comes to baseball teams, you could just have one on a show, but we were like, hey, let's get two. Let's Get To, presented by Twitchy Dolphin Media. Creative Director, Jessica Bybee-Jedgetz. Written, directed, and hosted by James Christopher. Executive Producers, Andy Tomcheson and Scott McIntyre. Produced by Andrew Nelson, Eric Mertens, Jess Canaster. Commentary by Gary C. Warren, Emily Nyman, Paul Caputo, Ed Rivera. Music by Grace Usselman, On Holiday. All trademarks of the teams covered on this episode are the property of those teams. Look for more content from Twitchy Dolphin Media and the Let's Get To family, including Go-Go Astros, Fanboy 76, Yell Fight Suey, Jerseyed, and Unboxed. This has been Let's Get To, baseball from sea to shining sea by the folks who bring you home.